It was early in the morning when Halima, the young maid, carried a tray with a cup of freshly brewed coffee to her master, Mr. Danjuma. As she placed the hot cup on the table before him, she couldn't help but steal a quick glance at his kind face. Inside her head, she pictured a world where it was just the two of them, laughing and sharing quiet moments like this. Mr. Danjuma always treated her with respect and kindness, stirring feelings in her heart she dared not speak aloud. But then, the room's warmth faded as Mrs. Leila Danjuma walked in. She was a tall, elegant woman, always dressed in fine silk that whispered across the floor as she moved. Her face was beautiful, but as distant and cold as the moon. Whenever she spoke, her voice was sharp, clipped, and it seemed to Halima that there wasn't a drop of sweetness in her. Halima watched from the corner of the room as Mrs. Leila barely acknowledged her husband's presence, not even a tender glance or a small smile. It made Halima's heart ache. She thought, how can she be so cold to such a good man? Doesn't she see how lucky she is? Halima sighed softly to herself. If only Mr. Danjuma could see that his wife wasn't right for him, that he deserved someone who would cherish his gentle ways. Halima wished he could notice what she saw, but Mrs. Leila's cold elegance cast a spell on him that he seemed blind to break. It all felt so unfair to the warm-hearted maid, who only wanted Mr. Danjuma's happiness, even if she wished she could be a part of it. As the days passed, each one just like the last, Halima watched the cold exchanges between Mrs. Leila and Mr. Danjuma. Her heart went out to her master, and she became more and more convinced that he was unaware of his wife's true nature. One morning, while brushing the elegant gowns in Mrs. Leila's closet, a bold thought took root in Halima's mind. I'll find out what's really going on, she whispered to herself. She believed that if she could just uncover something, anything, that would show Mrs. Leila's true colors. Then Mr. Danjuma would at last see what Halima saw. So, Halima decided she would keep a close eye on Mrs. Leila. She would be extra alert, more watchful than ever. When Mrs. Leila left her room, Halima would listen for whispers, for any hint of a secret. She would watch where Mrs. Leila went, whom she met, and what she did when she thought no one was looking. Halima hadn't done anything like this before, and her heart was a swirl of nerves and excitement, but she felt sure about her mission. It wasn't just for herself, it was for her kind master who deserved the truth. She hoped that by spying on the mistress, she could protect Mr. Danjuma and maybe, just maybe, bring him the happiness he was missing. The opportunity Halima had been waiting for came sooner than she expected. Mr. Danjuma announced one morning that he had to go on a sudden business trip. He would be away for several days. With her master gone, the house felt different, and Halima noticed a change in Mrs. Leila's routine too. Mrs. Leila, who usually kept to the house, her routine as precise as clockwork, did something unusual. She dressed in simple clothes, far less grand than her usual attire, and without a word to anyone, she slipped out of the estate's back gate. This was the moment Halima had been anticipating. Her heart raced as she quickly grabbed a headscarf to cover her hair, and followed Mrs. Leila out of the gate. She kept her distance, making sure she wasn't seen, as she tailed Mrs. Leila through the winding streets. Halima's mind buzzed with possibilities. Where could the mistress be going without her husband, dressed so plainly? It was unlike her to venture far from the comforts of the estate. Halima moved from shadow to shadow, her curiosity growing with every step she took after Mrs. Leila. This could be her chance to discover what the mistress was hiding, and, in doing so, maybe change everything. Halima sneaked behind Mrs. Leila through busy streets, past lots of small shops, and deeper into a run-down part of Abuja. The houses were old and shaky, so different from the fancy place where she worked. They stopped at a house that looked really worn out, with cracked walls and chipped paint. Mrs. Leila checked to see if anyone was watching before she went inside. Halima had to know what was going on, so she quietly moved up to a window with a broken shutter to listen. Inside, the voice she heard was Mrs. Leila's, but she sounded different, kind and worried, not strict and cold like at the big house. Halima peeked in and saw Mrs. Leila with an older man and woman and two younger girls. They looked like they didn't have much money and were her family, her dad, her mom, and her sisters. Halima listened closely as Mrs. Layla spoke to her family, her voice a mix of sadness and urgency. I had to see you all one last time, Mrs. Layla started. He's been getting more strict. He doesn't even want me to mention I have a family. It's like he wants to make sure I forget you exist. Now that he's gone on a trip, I saw my chance. Her family looked at her with heavy hearts, knowing the hardship she faced with a man who wanted her all to himself, erasing her past. Her dad's face was filled with guilt. All those days I sat down to play Ayo with Mr. Danjuma. I thought it was just a friendly match between neighbors, he began, shaking his head. But that man, he twisted the game, made sure the odds were in his favor with his sneaky tricks. Mrs. Layla's mom added, he cheated, and then he pounced like a lion on a zebra, taking advantage of the mess your father was in. Mrs. Layla sighed heavily, the pain clear in her eyes. And when he proposed that deal, taking me as payment for your debt, there was no choice in it. It was my sacrifice to save the family. Her sister sat quietly, their eyes downcast but full of respect for the choice she'd made, while her parents' faces showed nothing but remorse. We know the cost of your choice, Layla, and every day we live with that regret, her father said, his voice heavy. But we are still a family, no matter what he says or does. We are still here for you, sister, one of her sisters whispered, reaching for her hand. Mrs. Layla nodded, her resolve not shaking. Just remember, even if I'm not here and he tries to erase my past, I'll always keep you all in my heart. She stood up, ready to leave before her husband returned, holding on to the love of her family to carry her through the tough days ahead. As Halima hid and listened, she felt really sad for Mrs. Layla. She couldn't believe how brave she was to do such a hard thing for her family. Halima felt bad for ever thinking Mrs. Layla was not nice. She also got pretty mad at Mr. Danjuma for being so mean and making Mrs. Layla forget her family. Seeing Mrs. Layla standing up to leave touched Halima's heart. Even though they didn't say it out loud, it was like Mrs. Layla and her family were promising to always remember each other, no matter what Mr. Danjuma did. Mrs. Layla quickly wiped a tear from her eye, gave everyone a hug, and stood tall like the lady she was. She left the old house quietly, the same way she had come in. Halima stayed a little way behind as they walked back to the big fancy house where they both worked. When they got there, Mrs. Layla went straight inside, acting like nothing happened, like she was just the boss lady again. Halima felt really sorry for her and was amazed by how strong she was, going back to a place where she couldn't even talk about her own family. Halima was sweeping floors and wiping down surfaces in Mr. Danjuma's office like any other day. The office was always locked up tight, except for today. Mr. Danjuma had rushed out and left one of his drawers a bit open by mistake. Inside that drawer, Halima saw some papers with Mr. Adioti's name on them. Mr. Adioti was known in town as someone who you wouldn't want to mess with. He was powerful, and there were whispers that he didn't get that power by playing nice with others. Nobody wanted problems with him because he was known as a big shot among the local tough guys. Curious and cautious, Halima pulled the papers out. They were full of tricky words and promises, but it was pretty clear that they were about Mr. Danjuma sneaking around and making a dodgy deal with Mr. Adioti. Halima's mind raced as she remembered talks around town. Someone had outsmarted Mr. Adioti, and now she was holding the proof that Mr. Danjuma was behind it all. She couldn't let Mr. Danjuma know she had found out his secret. She carefully tucked the envelope under her cleaning supplies on her cart. Her heart pounded as she thought about what to do next. She had to share this with Mrs. Layla. Maybe they could figure out how to use this information to get Mrs. Layla out of her tough marriage and away from Mr. Danjuma. Carrying the envelope, Halima felt a mix of fear and hope. This could be the key to helping Mrs. Layla, but it was also a dangerous game she was about to play. Halima waited for the perfect moment when she could talk to Mrs. Layla alone, without anyone overhearing. It was late evening when Halima found Mrs. Layla in the garden. "Ma'am, I found something today in Mr. Danjuma's office," Halima spoke in hushed tones. "It's about Mr. Adioti." Mrs. Layla's expression changed to one of alert curiosity. "What about him?" she asked, her voice low. He's been tricked by Mr. Danjuma, Halima revealed. She quickly explained how she had found proof in the office and described the documents. Mrs. Layla thought for a moment, then nodded decisively. We must let Mr. Adeoti know, she said. You must take it to Mr. Adeoti, she continued. I cannot go outside. He watches my every move. You have to do this without me. Halima took a deep breath. That was a big thing to ask. Going to a man as tough and feared as Mr. Adeoti wasn't something you just decided to do without a lot of thinking. This was scary. Halima knew Mr. Adeoti's house was where the big bosses dealt with serious business. But then she thought about Mrs. Layla, stuck in an unhappy life, with no way out. Mrs. Layla needed her help. Halima's hands shook a little, but she nodded. I'll take it to Mr. Adeoti, she said, her voice steady. She was really nervous, but she had to do this. For Mrs. Layla, she would be as brave as she needed to be. With the envelope secured in her apron, Halima made her way through the streets of Abuja until she stood before Mr. Adeoti's imposing house. She reached the gate, her hand hesitating for just a moment, before she summoned the courage to press the bell. When the gates opened, she stepped through, her resolve carrying her forward. She was greeted by a guard who eyed her with suspicion. I need to speak with Mr. Adeoti. It's urgent, Halima said, trying to sound confident even though her heart was racing. The guard led her into a room and told her to wait. After what felt like hours, but was only a few minutes, Mr. Adeoti walked in. He was as intimidating in person as his reputation suggested. Halima stood up, took a deep breath and said, Mr. Adeoti, I work for Mr. Danjuma. I found these. She carefully took out the envelope and handed it to him. They show that Mr. Danjuma tricked you in a big way. Mr. Adeoti looked at the papers closely. His frown deepened as he read. Halima continued, I'm here because Miss Layla, Mr. Danjuma's wife, is suffering. She married him to save her family from a dib, but he's been very cruel. She deserves a chance at a happy life, away from all this pain. Mr. Adeoti looked up from the papers and met her eyes. There was a long pause, and then he said, Thank you for bringing this to me. I don't take kindly to being deceived. I will handle Mr. Danjuma. And Mrs. Layla, sir, can you help her? Halima pushed, her hope for her mistress making her bold. He nodded slowly. Yes, we'll find a way to help Mrs. Layla and her family. Halima let out a silent sigh of relief. She had done her part. Now it was up to Mr. Adeoti to make things right. She thanked him and left, feeling a mix of fear and hope. This could be the beginning of a new life for Miss Layla. After her conversation with Mr. Adeoti, Halima returned to the Danjuma household and anxiously waited for what would happen next. She had planted the seed of change, but the outcome was uncertain. Days passed, and the tension in the house grew. Then, one afternoon, multiple cars rolled up the driveway. Mr. Adeoti had come to confront Mr. Danjuma. Mrs. Layla and Halima exchanged nervous glances as raised voices echoed through the halls from Mr. Danjuma's office. Finally, Mr. Adeoti emerged from the meeting with the look of victory on his face. He assured Mrs. Layla that her father's debt was cleared and that she was no longer bound to her marriage with Mr. Danjuma. Mrs. Layla was free. Relief washed over Mrs. Layla and Halima. In the following weeks, Mrs. Layla made arrangements to move her family into a modest but comfortable home. They were together and safe from Mr. Danjuma's grasp for the first time in a long while. In the quiet of her new home, Mrs. Layla sat down with Halima, away from everyone else. She looked into Halima's eyes, and it was like she could see right into her heart. Halima, she said softly, I can never thank you enough. What you did took so much courage. You've given me and my family a new start, a second chance at happiness. You weren't just doing a job. You put yourself on the line for us. I'll always remember that. No matter where life takes us, I'll always be there for you, the same way you've been there for me. Mrs. Layla reached out and took Halima's hands in hers, holding them tightly. After Mrs. Layla's kind words, Halima gathered her courage. She knew she had to be honest about her feelings before she could truly move on. Mrs. Layla, I gotta tell you something, Halima said, looking directly at her. Before all this, I was in love with Mr. Danjuma." She paused, letting the truth of her words hang in the air. "It took me a long time to see who he really was, and my feelings changed," Halima continued. "But I felt you should know. Helping you and your family, that's what's in my heart now." Mrs. Layla reached for Halima's hands, giving them a kind squeeze. "Thanks for telling me, Halima," she said softly. "We all make mistakes about people sometimes. What matters is you helped us, and you're like family now." Halima felt the heaviness lift off her chest. She was ready to close that chapter and start fresh, knowing she and Mrs. Layla shared a bond that went beyond words. In life, being brave can change things. When we do what's right, even if we're scared, we can start to fix what's wrong. Telling the truth makes people trust us more, and it can turn a simple friendship into something special. It's never too late to change who you are. Everyone makes mistakes, but it's trying to do better that counts. Being kind and forgiving helps everyone get along and makes us all happier. Remember, standing up for yourself is important. It's okay to say no to bad treatment and to fight for a better life. And if someone is being mean, it's good to stand with others to stop them. Their bad choices will catch up with them one day. Having friends and support is powerful. With others by our side, we can do big things. So be good to each other, be honest, and join hands to help out. That's the true spirit of being human, coming together to make the world a better place for all of us. Thank you for watching this story. It's like you touched a part of my soul. Stay blessed and may your life choices make you and your family happy.